So I chose today's gospel because I believe with it being the first day of the new year, it's quite relevant. Well, it's quite relevant all the time. It's very important. But before we get into unpacking it, we need to understand the context of it. Um, Matthew, Jesus has been very busy up to this point in the whole book of Matthew. He appeared to John the Baptist, was baptized, started teaching, and then he was doing all kinds of things, miracles and healing people and professing the faith. And then we got into the transfiguration. He did that. He did the Sermon on the Mount. And then he did the famous, love thy neighbor as a love thyself. And then it transitions up to this point where we're now at the point where he's saying there's actually going to be two, this is called the judgment or the parable of the goats and the sheep. Whereas, those who follow Jesus are going to be, eternally, saved, and those who don't are going to be eternally damned. I choose to look at this parable as something that applies with every single moment of every single day. Cardinal Thomas Collins out of Toronto said that anytime you're doing any kind of Lectio Divina or contemplative study, it should come from three things, 3 points on you and in you should be involved: your head, your heart, and your hands. So you first want to understand it intelligently or as close as possible. With parables, it's very difficult because there's multiple meanings for many parables. So once you understand it intellectually, then you want to process it through your heart, which brings you closer to the divine, closer to the creator, closer to God, and understand it from a heart perspective. And then we want to know how to put it into practice with our hands. And Jesus gives us this perfect example of, this is how it is to be. And people didn't quite understand it because they're looking for Jonathan Rumi, who looks like Jesus. So people today are still looking for Jonathan Rumi, who looks like Jesus, and not paying attention to everybody around you in your life, not in your life, people that you come into contact with. All of these people. Remember what Jesus said, the least of me. He wasn't saying the beautiful chiseled me. He's saying the least of me. That is where you will see me. That is where you will find me. And that is why the people did not quite understand what he meant, because, those who were righteous said that, and did good things, didn't recognize him because they were just living their faith, which is what we all should do. If you're living your faith and you see Jesus in everything and everyone, then there's no need to look. He's there. You feel him, you see him, you do. It's a natural thing. But for others, as they say, we're the goats, because the goats don't follow anybody. They do their own thing and they tend to go off and get into trouble, is they don't see Jesus. They're waiting for this guy. They're waiting for something. A lot of people don't know what they're waiting for. So it's important for us to put these into practice each and every single day. Again, as the sheep follow the Lord. They follow him and do as he asked. In Matthew, he gives us so many perfect examples of this. And people were kind of like, a little bit upset, or a little bit, I should say, more confused as to why is Jesus talking about judgment? Here we've got all these happy, good, feel-good things that he's been talking about. Why is he now talking about judgment? Well, we've got to keep in mind that this was the last series of teachings before Jesus was taken into custody, before he was crucified, and before he resurrected. So these teachings from Matthew 25 is the last of the teachings that Jesus had gave us. But it's important to look and see through how it cycles through, and how, just being a good person and seeing God and seeing Jesus in everything and everyone, and also yourself. When you look in the mirror, who do you see? Do you see Jesus? Because a lot of us feel personally that we are the least. A lot of us put ourselves down. And we have to begin with ourselves. When you look in that mirror in the morning, you say, "Good morning, Jesus." And you don't mean it that you've transfigured into Jesus, but you're acknowledging the divine in you, the Holy Spirit in you, Jesus in you. And go forth through the rest of your day, being as Jesus, acting from what we've learned from Jesus. If you do that, folks, you cannot go wrong.